Well, you can't trust County.
Okay, should we do a reveal?
I guess we have to.
I gotta take a sip of the water. Hold on.
Okay. Let me take a sip of my Arnold Palmer. I gotta get in character. Hold on.
Oh, okay. You're giving me a hint right now. A hint.
I'm getting in character.
It sounds male. I can't be sure.
It's not male. That's the saddest part.
Okay. Should we reveal?
Let's
Do we undo the countdown?
Okay.
Wait, who do you think I'm gonna be? Just curious. Wait,
well,
should I give you? No, I can't give you a character. It'll give it away. Damn.
Oh my god! I was gonna say historically you've been something really scary for the first one, so I'm a little scared.
I would say that who I
My heart's
am
beating.
is as delicate as one can be.
Stop.
Ready to reveal?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay,
Hold on.
you do
I
the count.
have something queued up. I gotta do it at the same time. Okay. Hold on.
Okay. You want me to do the countdown?
Yeah, you do the countdown.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. What is going on this day?
We're like basically the same person.
I think we're from the same place, baby.
I think we're about to go out to
I've never
Arby's.
felt more connected to you.
We're gonna have a grand old time. These two people are certainly related.
That impression's pretty damn good. Do it again. Whoa.
These two people are certainly related.
These two people.
People
That's
are
good.
related.
You sound
Holy
like her.
F Gladys, you look.
Wait, oh my god, I forgot
incredible.
an accessory. Hold on.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Yes.
I
Oh.
absolutely love this house. Oh, I bet that is China. That is original. I can tell that's good China.
I'm
Do
actually
you have a bowl?
shaking. You okay? Break down the makeup.
It's just a little light blush, to be honest.
It's just a little foundation.
A little foundation.
It's just a little bit.
It's just a lot. It's a lot of shadowing to get the bulb of
My
the nose, and then the rest was just playground. I
That
had falsies
is-
on. This was the hardest thing because the eyeliner's so thick, and I'm like, how'd they get it that like charcoal opaque black? I
Yeah.
literally stamped the eyeliner with a mascara wand. It's mascara.
Oh my god! Which kind of makes sense because it makes her look more like strange.
Like that was like a thought process of
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
the
yeah.
makeup where she's like, well, I need eyeliner, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna use the mascara wand and
mascara.
just do a little line.
Oh my god! You look just. Delta's gonna freak out.
I was like, thank God we rescheduled so that's happening next week. But like, I was like, that would have been a lot for one day.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
also had a party that was scheduled for that day, and I was like, maybe I'll just stay in it all day, and I'll go
Yeah.
to that like it's like Jamie's like true crime event. I'm like, maybe I'll just go in this.
It's so good. The glasses make it though. I love the glasses.
Let me put them back on, baby.
I mean, I would rock this whole outfit. I love it.
Oh.
I love what you've done.
I can't take
really
this
do.
impression. You
Wait.
sound so much like her. It's actually uncanny. Whoa.
I was walking around my apartment just going, Silas.
Solace.
But I love that you thought it was a man.
And now, no, it completely makes sense now that I have the visual context. Talk to me about your makeup story here. What was
Well,
done?
What I could only really do is that I know she likes a smoky eye, and I don't typically do one.
She's
I
all
just
eyes.
She's all eyes, big falsies, doing a little mascara on the bottom. But really, I was trying to nail the. She's got sort of a like this
Jim?
kind of smile. So I was
I
trying
really
to get,
can't take that impression.
It's
That
too
impression's
much.
crazy, Stu. The
It's-
wig. Talk to me about this wig.
So there's a second wig. I got two wigs because I was like,
We
I
have
don't know
alternates.
which wig. We have
Because
alternates.
it varies between seasons.
Well, I think my other wig is basically the one you're wearing. It looks so much like it, just without the bangs.
Baby, this is a custom. I cut it
Oh my
myself.
God, it's
And I
so
did cut it
good.
myself.
It's really good. Was it long?
It was a bit longer, so I trimmed it up and then I teased it, and then the bangs I did a full cut on, but the bangs could have been shorter.
Oh my God, this character. I
Also-
feel like
This
You
is
go.
this is every agent and casting director I've ever met in New York City, by the way.
100%.
Honey, if you don't have what it takes, just tell me right now because you're wasting my time in my office. I'm
That-
really not here to fuck around with anybody.
It's
6
so
minutes in.
true. It's so true. Oh my God. I feel like, listen, you're setting the bar high because I feel like a lot of people are going to be Gladys. And this is damn good.
Do you have the balls, honey?
It's good. It's real good, honey. It's
When I called Scott, he didn't even react. He just said, "There's something wrong."
I thought you were going to say that you FaceTime Mel again. She was like, you look beautiful.
I did FaceTime Mel, but I FaceTimed Mel last night, or she FaceTimed me actually. She was coming home from the bars, and she's like, "This is looking movie grade right now."
It
It's
really
looking movie
does.
grade.
I'm dead serious. Like, you're setting the bar extremely high because I know a lot of people are going to want to be Gladys. So post that tutorial.
I'll share it with the world. I want to hear more about. So the second wig that you have is real red, is what you're saying?
Well, it's
I do
really
love this pumpkin top you got on.
well.
though.
This is what she wore
and the
in
cross. We gotta give this world
She's like,
back to God.
I was trying to capture the actual like the Reba sitcom poster where she's like,
The most iconic Reba. Yeah.
yes, the most iconic Reba. But it was so funny because I ordered this other because I was like, I don't know if I want to be like I'm a Survivor Reba or if I want to be like country like CMA's Reba. So I have it as a backup.
Both live within.
Both live within, but I ordered this other wig that's like a little bit longer and like curlier. And I texted Jordan yesterday and I said, real talk, I need your opinion on something. Don't tell Silas. And she was like, okay. So I sent her.
I love the conspiracy planning of like, keep it to yourself.
Truly. Because I feel like she's a Reba historian. So I was like, I need your opinion. And she was like, absolutely the first one.
She
was
is,
like-
but it was you who you gifted me Reba's Christmas CD. Do you remember that?
Oh my God.
You did
Yes.
that. Yeah, you
You did that.
You did that. You gifted me Reba. It's like I used to play it all the time in my car. That's
Listen.
what got me across the country when I moved to LA.
There is something about Reba that is really like I was listening to Summer for Music today and I was like, she is just timeless in some sort of way.
She's like a warm cup of hot chocolate. There's just
She
something about
really
her that
is.
feels homey and comfy, but you totally captured the essence of Miss Reba.
Well, you have me literally shaking at the beginning of this because I'm scared of Gladys. So
I can't imagine why.
it's really good. Oh my God.
parents eat each other.
Oh God. I hope that you come back for another
From the
episode
dead.
from the dead. I hope you come back as Gladys, like in the end of the movie.
Okay, what like doing the old age makeup before getting into like the beauty makeup?
Uh-huh.
That's how I looked. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I look really like torn up, but I want you to imagine because I have to come hair and makeup ready for Delta. This is how I'm getting out of the car. Like this is me getting my seatbelt off, and Delta's producer Doug comes out and goes, "Hi, so great to meet you, Silas." And I go, "I'm so happy to be here."
As long as you have the glasses on, it's chic.
You're right. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll try.
They're
that
gonna be
scenario
like,
again.
wow.
Traffic was a nightmare, Doug. An absolute nightmare.
It's incredible.
In the middle of filming this makeup tutorial last night, there were kids screaming outside, and I just instinctively, maybe it was the costume, I went, "Shut the fuck up!" Looking exactly like this. And I was like, I think I'm becoming her.
Yeah.
Also, 9 minutes.
Well, I was gonna say you hit the nail on the head about the casting director thing. So she does live within you. You've known this woman for a very long time.
It's true. It's a variation of a person that you and I have both met many times
Yes.
over.
Yes.
Oh, creepers.
Creepers. I know we haven't
Oh.
even like acknowledged yet. We're like, hi, babies, because they're all on the other side going, oh my God.
Well, that's the thing. I always think about the Apple listeners who are listening to this podcast and they're like, what the hell are they talking about? Are they wearing something funny? Like, truly go and make a free account on Spotify because you can watch these episodes for free. So you get the video episodes. And also, you can leave comments in real time on Spotify on a podcast. And you can tell us how you feel about who we are today and who you'd like to see us become.
Because babies, I know the comment section for this is going to go buck wild. Buck
Buck
wild.
I took some pictures last night. I got to film content with this today, too. It's an exhausting day.
And it hasn't even begun.
Sometimes it's hard to be a woman. Well, also, you can't see the earrings. I'm sad.
Oh, all of it. And the freaking bracelet. It's a whole matching set, baby.
Is the magic set. Well, I'm so excited that we have this as our kickoff episode, and I was trying to figure out a good case for us to cover for this. And because Halloween feels like a special month, it feels like a time to do some highly requested cases or some of the more prominent cases. And I don't know if you know what we're doing today. Have I spoiled it for you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Let me pull up my notes.
Your like sinister smirk right now in this costume is
I
just
promise
like
you, it's all the
me.
makeup. It's nothing of me.
It's sending me.
Something about her is truly. The more I look at myself in the mirror, I had a whole like existential thing. I was like, I don't recognize myself.
Especially when you get that close. I don't recognize you right now. It's freaking me out. It's so good.
I just want you to see the lashes.
Okay, that shot when you're up like this, that's it. Oh my God, I missed this.
Okay. Let me first drop you a link. Before you open it, I am going to give you a lead-in. So I'm going to drop this in the studio chat, and this will be to the pictures that we'll discuss during the case. I'm going to warn you before you open this link, before I'm actually going to send it, and I will warn the creepers because I will put this up on Reddit. There are some parts of these photos that will be graphic, so there is a warning that's labeled at the top of each page of the pictures. Stu, unfortunately, you are contractually obligated to review them with me.
And I'm ready. Is Reba? I think Reba would be ready as well.
And I'm rough and tough. And who are the characters in Reba? I'm trying to think of like who she usually shouts. Is it Jim? Jim?
Is it Jim? And then didn't they have a follow-up show called like Happy's Place? It was like her and the aunt or the sister, and they had like a bar or something.
Was it the woman who married her ex-husband?
Yes,
Barbara Jean.
yes.
Barbara Jean.
Yes, Barbara Jean. Yeah.
Mind you,
my God.
like this woman is also a New York casting director. This woman is also somewhere in the South. I'm just not sure where she is.
She definitely like grew up in the. Actually, she reminds me of somebody from our tour, maybe. You know who I'm talking about.
Wait, it's
Sorry,
not
that's
coming
a
to
deep
mind.
cut.
It's not coming to mind immediately. Which tour?
No,
CreepTime tour?
the chamber tour. A certain crew member. Sorry, but I have to say it.
I'm getting like, I don't know, Tallahassee, Florida from this.
A little bit, yeah.
It's a little like, get the hell away from my camper. I've got a 9mm.
Absolutely.
Well, with all that said and established, let's get into what we are going to discuss today.
Oh my God.
What?
I just opened the link.
You did open it.
Yes. Oh
So,
my God. Okay.
as Stu has just come to learn, and as you will all learn very quickly, today we are discussing the infamous story around the staircase, which is more commonly connected and known by the documentary and then later the dramatized series. But also, this case is really about the death or possible murder, highly likely murder, of Kathleen Peterson. Did you watch the docuseries? Did you watch the dramatized series?
I watched the docuseries. I did not
did?
watch
Okay.
the dramatized.
It's really good.
It's so good. I shouldn't be like beaming the way I am right now, but I'm actually like genuinely stoked to go back and review it because I haven't thought about this case in forever, but I remember being so locked into that docuseries.
The docuseries historically is insane because they started shooting it, from what I can recall, in the middle of his prep for the trial. So they really had no idea which way this was going, and all of the things that got revealed in the middle of that, creepers, this is crazy, all of this story, all of the things that came out from that just happened on camera. Nobody knew it was coming because it was sanctioned by both Michael Peterson, the husband and alleged murderer, and his attorney at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
You really
God.
you really should watch the dramatized series, though. I think they did a phenomenal job with it. I gotta stop looking at myself.
In my head, I'm like, is it Patricia Arquette that's in that?
No, it's Tony Collette.
Tony Collette. Okay.
Tony Collette. And I'm
I
forgetting
definitely
who
should.
played Michael, but he was pretty good as well. I think everybody was really good in it, and they did a great job, I think, of capturing what that home and neighborhood and feel looked like and felt like in early 2000s Durham, North Carolina. And
Yes.
I wanted to bring this to you because you are a North Carolinian. So before I even get into the top line, I'm just curious, what do you remember historically about the case when it was coming out? You were very young, so it may have been, shielded from you, but I'm just curious what comes to mind.
I don't remember hearing anything about it when I was growing up. But once the docuseries came out, and I remember seeing, obviously, I was in college, I think, when the docuseries came out. So I was right around the corner from Durham. And I think I remember like a group of friends of mine actually drove to go see the house because I went to Carolina and that was
Really?
like 10 minutes away. And I think the attorney, if I remember correctly, He might have gone to like Chapel Hill for law school or something, but there was some sort of like Chapel Hill connection there too.
That's possible. I mean, a lot of between Kathleen and between Michael, they're also obviously born and bred North Carolinians, and they both went to Duke at different eras because he's 10 years her senior. But there is anti-Duke. You heard it
Sorry,
here first.
I gotta say it. I'm a Tar Heel. Reba. Reba says F Duke. Okay.
This person went to Duke.
Yeah. Facts.
But that's interesting. Yeah, I was just curious to figure out like what you had heard about it, what you remembered about it. But it sounds like most of your connection is through the docuseries and not when the case and the trial was actually playing out. Because I didn't know this, but at the time, this ended up being, I believe, the longest trial in North Carolinian history.
Whoa. Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, in hindsight, like looking at it, I was like, well, it didn't look like it lasted that long because I think it technically went from like July to October, but historically, that is the longest trial for North Carolina.
Wow. I do kind of remember, I used to date somebody that was from Durham, and I feel like I remember him saying that his parents remembered, obviously, like everything that was happening with that case because they lived very close. So,
yeah, technically this was in Forest Hills, which I believe is like a little neighborhood within Durham. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. That's actually, I think, weird connection, but you know the rapper J. Cole?
Yes.
I think he's from Forest Hills, if I remember correctly.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Or maybe that's Fayetteville. Anyways, I'm taking this off course. All my North Carolina ping-ponging.
No, this is useful. It's helpful to like contextualize the place and the feel, and I thought that you would have a unique perspective to it. But for anybody who is maybe not familiar, I can't imagine you aren't, with the story of the staircase. First off, let's just establish a top line so I can refresh both you and I and the creepers. So where does this begin? It is late at night. On the night of December 9th, 2001, out in the Forest Hills neighborhood, which is situated in Durham, North Carolina, as mentioned, there is a distressed 911 call that came in at 2:41 in the morning from Michael Peterson. This was the husband to 48-year-old Kathleen Peterson, who you'll see in the pictures on that first page, correct? Now, Michael described an unimaginably horrific scene over the phone, saying that Kathleen had been found unconscious, but still breathing. Hold on to that. And said that she was clinging to life. And she's at the foot of the stairs in their house. She's covered in blood. And he's kind of leading the witness in a way where he's sort of saying it looks like a fall, like an accidental fall down a flight of stairs. And she had suffered major injuries considering how much blood was seen. By the time paramedics barged through the door of this home in Forest Hills and they came upon the scene, which was described as horrifying, with blood splatter all over the floors and all up the walls surrounding the staircase, it was immediate and it was unmistakable. Kathleen was already dead, and there was nothing that could be done to save her at this point. Even from the witness statements of the paramedics in that home on the night of, there were strange details that very quickly started to unravel a bit of the scene. Paramedics remembered there was an unusual amount of blood for what they were told was a fall down the stairs. And they also thought it was odd that the blood was pretty much dried entirely on the floor, suggesting she had been bleeding for a very long time. There were paper towels that were scattered all over the floor. The husband, Michael, is barefoot. He's got no shoes, no socks on, took them off. And there were these like wipe marks that were up the wall. And it's just it was a visually striking scene that to the paramedics, they didn't want to, force fit a narrative, but they were like, something about this doesn't look right to us from the scenes that we walk in on. There were also multiple deep and very visible lacerations to the top and back of the head that seemed unexplainable and inconsistent with a fall. So then all eyes suddenly returned to our original caller, her husband, Michael Peterson. He is now the prime suspect in what is now believed to be the murder of Kathleen Peterson. And this today is the full and complete deep dive that I want to uncover. And the reason I think it's more relevant than ever is because in doing the research, I'm going to be very honest, I had a firm belief because I had watched the docuseries, I had watched the dramatized series, I know the case very well, or at least I thought I did. I had a firm belief. I was like, I know which way this is going. He's accused of murder. He is the murderer, which in all honesty, I still hold true to. I am unnerved by how far to the middle this actually pushed me. when reading about some of the evidence found with the theories, where it kind of knocked me off my feet, where I was like, I'm pretty firm in thinking I know what happened based on the evidence. There are some things here that I find difficult to explain. So that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today. And I want to get your POV on it. But before we go any further into a backstory, let's just pause there just so I just clicked back to myself. Jesus Christ. Let's just pause there just so I can get your feelings on the top line from that refresh.
Oh my God. Yeah. I forgot about the blood being everywhere. And I remember that kind of being the first thing that I was like, when somebody falls, does blood go all over the walls? I remember thinking that in the docuseries and that being like one of the first things that I was like, this guy did it. And I think a lot of people hold on to that.
Do you want to see an actual picture of the crime scene just because it's the top line and we just talked about it? We'll talk about it later, but I'm not sure which photo it's on. But if you scroll down, you will see an actual photo of her body at the scene.
Oh my God.
And you'll see the sheer amount of blood and just how much of it is up the wall.
Oh my God. I don't even remember if I saw this picture in the docuseries. Holy. Yeah. I mean, that just inherently does not look consistent with someone just falling down the stairs. So I am really curious though, because I feel like I was very much in your camp throughout the docuseries. I was like, this guy obviously did this. So
it's the Occam's razor approach.
Yeah.
You're like, well, of course.
So I'm really curious to hear, because there was always a part of me in like viewing their relationship where it did feel like there was a lot of really genuine love there at some point. So I did have a feeling sometimes where I was like, did he really do it? Or is he just kind of like an awkward person that like can't get himself together enough?
He's like
to not look
self-incriminating.
guilty?
Yeah.
So I'm really curious.
Kind of funny you say that because that was the sentiment from almost everyone who knew them. Even people who were like intimately close with them, family, friends, the family, they were like, even though there's now a fracture in the family and there are people who in the family who believe Michael did it, they also conceded to the idea where they were like, we had no idea that there could have been issues in their relationship. Everything always seemed fine and they seemed like they really loved each other. And I couldn't tell. And I also wanted your POV on that because I was like, well, is that like Southern, I don't know, sort of like masking where like people, it's all about like presentation or appearances, because they were kind of like a well-known couple. Michael even ran for mayor in Durham at one point.
Oh my God. I never even knew that.
It's a whole thing to get into. It's a debacle what happened.
Was that pre her Kathleen's death or post?
Yes, 1 year before.
Well, that kind of is interesting too.
I want to talk about that a lot and whether or not that might have played into some of the inner turmoil of what was going on. So I think that might be a good time actually to shift into their backstories just so we know who they are, but also so I can talk about some of the money troubles they were having. And some of that tails off of his humiliating run for mayor.
Oh my God.
So let's dive into this backstory. Give the creepers who are listening a little bit of some greater context, I guess, into who Kathleen and Michael were to each other. So as mentioned, our story does begin in Durham, North Carolina, where the couple lived very luxuriously, I might add. Did you see maybe on the second or third picture the house?
Yeah, they had a huge
page,
house. I remember this.
It's 9,000 square feet. It's a mansion.
Oh my God.
It's huge. So Kathleen was born in 1953, and she lived in North Carolina her whole life, and she went on to achieve major academic success. And this is an accolade that's pretty impressive. Not only did she go to Duke, she was the first woman ever to be invited into the Duke engineering program.
Wow. Oh my God.
Really, really impressive. And I believe she got her bachelor's and her master's in engineering. She would later go on to find career success working at the executive level for Nortel Networks, which I believe I read was a telecom company that's headquartered in Canada. I think they later dissolved because they were really big in the 90s during the initial like tech boom. But most often in her marriage, the reason I set the stage for her career and her education, she was earning much more than her husband. Reportedly $145,000 a year in 2001, which would have been the equivalent of $270,000 today with inflation. Friends and family would remember Kathleen as an ambitious, smart, very warm, and very social person who cared deeply about her work, and she really cared for her family. Now, her story with Michael, this is something I didn't know. It actually doesn't go back as far as we might imagine. I thought they had been married for a very long time. Did you?
Yeah, for some reason I was thinking to myself, did they meet at Duke and they had been together that long?
That's what I thought too, because I was like, oh, they both went to Duke, but he's actually, like I said, 10 years her senior, so they never crossed paths. They met I believe it might have been somewhere in the mid 90s, but they married in 1997.
Okay.
So they hadn't been married all that long by 2001.
Wow. Okay.
So Michael, he was born in 1943, didn't marry Kathleen till 97, as mentioned, and the two merged their families. Kathleen had a daughter from a previous marriage named Caitlin, and Michael actually had two biological sons. He had Todd and Clayton. And he was also the guardian to two girls named Martha and Margaret from a previous friendship, not a relationship. We're going to get into more of that later. That friendship ended in an eerily similar circumstance to the tragedy surrounding Kathleen. So, like I said, Michael was also a Duke alum, but he never surpassed his wife in terms of career or in terms of income. After they married in 1997, Michael was already somewhat of an established novelist at the time, but he was most commonly drawing a lot of inspiration for fictional writing based on his time serving in the military in the Vietnam War. He had also tried to run for mayor in Durham, which became an immense failure and scandal, and sadly pushed the couple further and further into social and, soon enough, financial turmoil by the year 2000. Kathleen was always the breadwinner. Michael was possibly working on and off as a columnist for the Durham Herald-Sun. You ever heard of that publication?
I feel like I have. Yeah.
The Herald-Sun.
Herald.
But he was like, simultaneously, he was going around town for years, sort of like flaunting himself and his lifestyle as if he was this successful and financially prosperous novelist. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. It was an absolute lie. From what I read, Michael hadn't earned an income in 2 years at this point. Reports later revealed from court proceedings that despite the couple living in this very affluent neighborhood in the 9,000 square foot mansion and throwing these luxury parties with the neighbors, the two were struggling to keep up appearances and money was running out very quick. So while Kathleen made the bulk of their income, her stock options over at Nortel crashed in 2000. This is when like the tech bubble burst and it completely depleted their net worth. Like she wasn't going to be able to use those stocks and sort of bail the couple out and all of their expenses, their bills. Reportedly at a point, it got to something where they lived at this huge mansion, but it was kind of like Sonia Morgan where they couldn't afford to like fix leaky pipes or like bad plumbing and like the ceilings falling down around them. But they're still hosting these parties and trying to keep up appearances. Which, tell me if do you think that's a thing of the South of like, or maybe just in affluent neighborhoods in general, people who are going through turmoil but really don't have the instinct to cut back ever?
I think it is both things, but I think in the South it's a lot more intense, the like keeping up the appearances and not saying things about what you're going through to people, or if you do, like cover it in some sort of like act as if it's not a big deal. So it's like not telling the full truth, which like whatever, it's your business. You can
like
tell
a bailout is just around the corner or something.
Yeah. So, but I think if they were, do you know where they were from originally? Well, Kathleen was from North Carolina.
I thought I read that Michael was too.
Okay, so they both, it tracks that they're both kind of doing the whole like keeping up Southern appearances thing for sure.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, we can't forget that it's on the tail end of this like absolutely humiliating run for mayor. And I know I keep sort of teasing it and I haven't really got into it yet, but like I'm just trying to imagine their headspace and like the social isolation of how embarrassing that might have been. And we'll talk a little bit about why it was so bad, but it had to do with some lies about serving in the military, which I believe could be a no-no in the South. So just to further press on about how bad their money troubles really were, I was able to dig up some court documents where they were able to trace their credit card debt, which supposedly was $140,000 in the hole across 20 separate accounts.
Oh my God.
Things aren't going well.
That's
not good.
Crazy. I've heard a lot of tales of people being in financial turmoil, but
credit
wild.
card debt, like with those interest rates, 140, like how do you even dig yourself out?
Yeah. You'd have to literally win the lottery.
It's also, so the tensions are running high because of that, but also Kathleen at this time, just to touch on like her issues with Nortel. Yes, she's an executive, but because their stock had plummeted, they're in the middle of like this insane restructure and they've laid off like tens of thousands of people company-wide. And she's really fearful that she's going to be next. She's like entirely insecure about her job and she knows she's the only one earning money. So if that happens, the whole thing goes flat. The whole thing falls apart. And then they're completely screwed forever because they'll never be able to catch up with that debt. There was something here I'll mention that was supposedly right around the corner because, like I said, Michael is a novelist and he had some fictional novels that were out. Supposedly a call had happened shortly before Kathleen's death or murder, where Michael was given a potential option of a movie deal for one of his novels. There was somebody in Hollywood, allegedly, who wanted to buy the rights to one of his novels to adapt it into a film. And I think, at least he was running with this. He was like, this is our bailout. It's all going to work out. That never happened for obvious reasons. Now, before I go any further, anything you want to say just about this before we're going to jump into the timeline of the night? Just sort of how we're recapping everything that leads up to the night of December 9th, really the 8th into the 9th.
Well, the last thing you just said about the movie deal, it's funny. I started thinking about like how a lot of this.
And honey, I know movie deals.
Also an odd parallel with Sonia Morgan, by the way. But anyways, I feel like he was probably feeling pretty emasculated throughout some of their marriage just because she was so successful. But then it's funny, I was thinking that if he was going to have this chance to be the hero and then that also fell through, that could have played into this all sort of like bubbling and then falling down miserably. So I don't know. I was just thinking about him in particular.
I think that's right on the money. I mean, it's not to say that, every husband when their wife earns more than them would have this sort of reaction or would feel emasculated. But he in particular, I do think you're correct, fits that bill. Solely because of the performative nature of his personality and how he has to flaunt this sort of larger than life wealth and run for mayor and do these great things. And the movie deal possibly falling through is also a parallel failure to the failure of him trying to run for mayor.
Right.
So,
I wasn't even thinking about that too.
I think it's maybe compounding considering how close in time it was to the night of December 9th when all of this goes down. Shall we get into the timeline?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm really sweating. Can I check myself real quick? I'm really sweating bad. I feel my upper lip
like
is
parched.
soaked wet. Can you see that if I get close?
Well, let me toggle back.
Let me toggle back.
I do see a little upper
dew.
lip sweat, but that's okay.
It's
okay. When you're back, baby, I can't see a damn thing. You
When
look
I'm
fabulous. You look fabulous.
You really gotta start doing that impression on TikTok or something. That's one of the best ones I think I've heard. I'm not kidding.
Oh my God.
Creepers, weigh in on that. Talk about Stu's impression of Reba.
Hey, maybe I'll start.
Is she
start
from
talking
North
like
Carolina? She's not from North Carolina.
No, she is from like Appalachia.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like,
Tennessee.
that accent is some other version of Southern.
Listen,
Aubergine.
Aubergine. Aubergine.
Aubergine.
Do you know she has a podcast, by the way, Reba?
Does she?
She does. It's called Living and Learning with Reba. And I listened to an episode.
Is it good?
Today.
I bet she's pretty good.
She's a pretty good interviewer. I will say do you know Leanne Morgan? The comedian?
I do.
She was the guest. So it was like a great episode because they're both from Appalachia and they're just ping ponging and talking like this back and forth. But but Reba, she's a nice person, but Leanne was kind of driving the whole thing. I felt like Reba
Leanne's
maybe
a comic, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I was curious. I was like, Reba, I don't know. Everything she says is just kind of. She's got a backstory about hanging out with Bo and going to Johnny Cash's release party or whatever. Like it's all
playing
like
at the
lore.
old Opry.
Yeah,
Megan Dolly back in the day.
Yeah.
I said, "Here's a one chance fancy, don't let me down." Oh, I thought you were gonna be that version of Reba with like the low cut,
I should have been.
the infamous red dress.
Listen, I'll just do 5 episodes for Halloween, all different iterations of Reba.
I can't wait till you see my costume next week. It's gonna be one for the books.
Oh my God, I'm excited.
I couldn't get it together in time for this, but this had to take the floor for obvious reasons.
This is the perfect intro.
All right, back into the timeline. So I am going to run you through the moment by moment of what we know, and I'm also going to say take this with a grain of salt because some of this can be confirmed just based on witness statements and whatnot. And some of the tech forensics that we would get, some of it is on Michael's word. So we're going to take it with a real like light suggestion of what happened. So let's break it down. The timeline begins as follows. I'm going to start a little later into the night because technically this goes much earlier, but I'm going to start around 9:45 p.m. This is when Christina Tomasetti, who I don't have a picture of, she is the girlfriend of one of Michael's sons, Todd. She arrives at the Peterson home in Forest Hills. Forest Hill? I can't remember if there's an S there. Forgive me, creepers. And the reason she's showing up there is she's going to take Todd to a party. Now, she notes in her witness statement that Michael and Kathleen were sharing a bottle of wine. The two were drinking, and they're in very high spirits. Everything seemed relaxed. Everything seemed fine. They're hanging out in the kitchen. It's chill. 10:20 p.m. This is when Christina and Todd leave the party after hanging around the Peterson home with the couple for roughly like 35 minutes, right? Kathleen and Michael are now home alone. 10:40 p.m. We would get later confirmation from a tech sweep done on, I believe, the family PC. Normally, Kathleen would not use this computer, and I want us to remember that. She would usually conduct her business for her job on her personal laptop. However, she left it at work, and I want to call attention to it because this pushed her that night into having to use the family computer to try to retrieve a file before a 10 a.m. conference that was going to happen the next morning. 11:08 p.m. Kathleen gets on the phone, and she speaks to her coworker. It's a woman named Helen, and during this call, Helen remembered that Kathleen asked her if she could email over some sort of file for that teleconference. She needs it before 10 a.m. the next morning. Whether Helen has to finish it or what, we're unsure. But Helen did remember in her statements that Kathleen did not sound intoxicated in the slightest. She sounded totally of sound mind. And even at one point on the phone, Kathleen is like yelling to Michael, and she's like, "Hey, Michael," she's like, do you know what the email login is for the family computer?" Again, backing up and suggesting she does not use this computer often, and she was going to use possibly Michael's email to get this file. That's very important because what she's going to find in his email is relevant here. So the call ends, and technically Helen is the last person on that call or outside of the home to have spoken directly with Kathleen before she is killed. 11:53 p.m., Helen's email arrives for Kathleen in that inbox. The email is never opened. So I think that window between 11:08 to 11:53, something might have gone down, in my opinion. According to Michael's statement on that night, Kathleen had then gone up to bed, leaving him outside by the pool where he was smoking some kind of a cigar, but I also read it could have been a pipe. That's irrelevant. And he said that she had gone up to bed sometime around 11:30, and he had initially given this like rough statement about the scenario, and it was something odd where it was like she went up to bed and then he went outside to like shut the pool lights off and then came back in and then found her at the bottom of the stairs, suggesting that it was like an immediate thing where it was like, she's like, "I'm going to bed, it's 11:30, and then he walks out to shut the pool lights off, comes back in, and then he finds her. However, there are some details in the autopsy that we would later get that would throw a wrench in his series of events. So his updated story actually didn't place this at 11:30, or actually placed her going up at 11:30, whereas he had previously said that she went up to bed much later. So he's suggesting she did go up to bed at 11:30, but he just stuck out by the pool and dozed off. I'm going to preface again, this is December in North Carolina. You know the weather much better than I do, but I was like, that ain't warm outside to be hanging out by the pool for hours in a t-shirt and shorts. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
I ended up looking up the weather, and it said lows were in the 40s and highs were in, I believe, the high 50s. And I'm like, that's too cold to just be dozing off by the pool in the middle of the night. No.
Even if it was warm, it's just strange in and of itself, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's in his, I forget how old he is at the time, probably in his 50s, but I'm like, people, old men tend to just like sleep wherever the hell they can. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I see that scenario. I just don't think it's likely that you would have even been comfortable lounging out there to begin with to fall asleep. So, as mentioned, that's all established. We have roughly 2 to 3 hours now in the home where time seems to stand still. There is no additional evidence found of any usage of tech on Michael's part or Kathleen's, and from Michael's statement, the two were in the home, but he was just outside sleeping for all of it. And then we roll around to 2:41 a.m. It is now December 9th. Michael supposedly gets up from outside, kind of stretches by the pool. He walks indoors, where he then discovers Kathleen, covered in blood, but still breathing, and then he calls 911. Should we pause there just to talk about the murkiness of that timeline and how he sort of double backed on the story? Do you believe it's possible that he could have been asleep? Just approaching with an open mind.
Sure, it's possible. Can you just remind me again? So the first thing that he said was that he went outside at like 11:30. She went upstairs, and then immediately he came in and she was dead.
That was actually the second. So the
That was the
timing got a
second.
little confused on that. He didn't actually give a time in the beginning because he called at 2:41 a.m. So he was suggesting that the two were together and she went up super late, right? Like she was saying that she basically went up at like 2:39 a.m. and then he went out to shut the pool lights off, came inside, and it was immediate that she like she had just fallen down the stairs. When the autopsy gets thrown back in his face and it looks like, oh, no, it appears she was dead for upwards of 2 hours before paramedics got there. That's when his story changed. And suddenly he was taking a nap by the pool and he remembered she went up at like 11:30. So the story definitely fluctuated.
I'm trying to keep an open mind.
I know.
Yeah, it's
I'm
really
I'm with
hard.
you.
It's really hard for me to believe that he just like went outside, dozed off, and then came back and like suddenly this had happened.
I'm curious to throw some of what the defense brings up about that scenario back to you to see how you feel, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But
Yeah.
I do want to reference back to this 911 call because he's on the call and he does mention, he's like, she's still breathing, she's clinging to life and, sort of feeding in the story. He actually, I didn't know this, called 911 twice because he hung up the original call.
I remember there being something weird about the 911 call, and I think that's what it was.
He called twice, and I don't remember that at all. So he called at 2:41, says she's still breathing, hangs up the call, and then calls back at 2:46 and says she's not breathing.
And see, to me, that just spells out somebody panicking in a guilty way. Because I think if there's nothing to hide, you're staying on the phone, and that's it. You're figuring this out,
I think so. I mean, I imagined I was like, is it possible he hung up and like threw the phone so he could perform CPR? To his own admission, he never attempted any life-saving measures on her body. There was no mouth-to-mouth. There was no CPR.
Yeah.
And he said she was still alive.
And I also think if she's still alive, then of course you don't hang up because you keep 911 on the phone so you can tell them, they can tell you how to keep her alive,
Exactly. So I had to question, I'm like, well, then why would you call back at 2:46? And I had to pay attention to what he said. And what he said was, she's not breathing anymore. He's declaring a time of death. In my opinion, allegedly. We cannot be sure. So now the EMTs, they arrive at the scene. It's now 2:50 in the morning. And she is found at the base of the stairs. You have seen the pictures, and her legs are splayed out on the floor, and her head and upper back are pretty much leaned against the bottom step, against the wall, like almost to the corner of the step. It's a pool of blood. It is splattered up the walls, and immediately she is pronounced dead. Initial observations by the paramedics between the 2:50 to 3 a.m. window would note that it looked like 5 to maybe 7 distinct lacerations that they could see on the top and back of Kathleen's head, splits so deep that you could see them through her hair. The sheer amount of blood suggested to the EMTs, who would eventually, some of them testify in this, suggested to them that she had been alive for a period of time and that she had been bleeding and struggling for at least an hour. This is all just their suggestion based on experience. They weren't going on the record as like forensic or, medical examiner witnesses, nothing like that. But the other thing here that they thought was really odd was how much of the blood was dried. Supposedly, they didn't even leave the scene with blood on their clothes or hands when they removed her body. That's how dry it was. Which suggested to them, in their opinion, that it had to have been at least 60 minutes before 911 was ever called, that she had been there, bleeding out. Kathleen is removed from the home for an autopsy, and the full family is contacted. I actually believe Michael contacted one of his sons first, or I can't remember if one of his sons came home in the middle of this, and he just saw all the pandemonium going on outside of the house and then barged in. So the whole family does come in. And there's very little regard in the beginning for, looking at Michael. Like nobody's really looking at him with a suspicious eye because it looks like a terrible, terrible tragedy and he's grieving. So for all intents and purposes, people are still leading heavily with this just being an accident where Kathleen fell. He's also informing them. He's like, we were drinking. You know, I think she took a Valium before she was going to bed. Maybe she lost her footing. He's writing the story because he's a fictional writer. He's a novelist. I can feel myself getting pissed.
My heart is actually beating really fast right now.
Yeah, but with all of what he's feeding, suddenly the tide starts to change here. The evidence that is found at the scene and then what is then uncovered from her autopsy would really change the course of this case. Before we're going to go any further, and I think discuss the autopsy at length, how are you feeling about the timeline? Because, like, you know, we have to take it with a grain of salt, as mentioned, because some of it is from Michael's word. But how do you feel about that?
A thought just came over me, and I've got the picture of Kathleen like blown up. I have two things to share that I've been feeling and observing. But the first is that I wondered if there was a world where she actually did fall by accident, and then he was like seeing her struggle and thought to himself, this is my chance to torture her basically and kill her. Like, I have all this anger and resentment that I've been masking, and like, this is my shot. And I won't really be guilty.
That's interesting.
Because she's fallen and I can make it look like. So that was the first thing I was thinking. And then the second, as I was zoomed in on this picture and I'm looking at her feet, which are also covered in blood. And I was like, did that mean that she was trying to like get up at some point? And like, how does she
What a wild and good observation. Yes.
blood all over her feet?
That's the thing. A lot of people bring that up, and a lot of people bring it up in a counter theory here that has nothing to do with Michael. And they say that this could have been a suggestion that she did fall and she was struggling and trying to stand and like get her bearings for a period of time. And that's where a lot of the wipe marks that the blood came up the wall and why her feet are covered in blood. There's so much mystery in this that that's what I'm saying. Like, I went into it with a really firm consensus and I'm like, I know what the hell happened here. And by the end of it, I was like, I'm a little like 60-40, which feels weird for me.
Yeah. Well, I think the mystery of it though is maybe like, I don't know. I know we'll unpack it, but I feel like the mystery of it is maybe because both things can be true. Two things could be true at once, that she really did fall, but he used it as an opportunity to do away with her. Like, I was envisioning this whole scenario where like she falls, yells for him, he comes in and he's like, okay, now I'm going to do this. And then all this blood being everywhere is because she was trying to get out of this terrible thing that started happening to her, which is that he started hitting her. Because how do you explain those lacerations?
Well, that's something to be discussed, to be honest, because again, I went into that thinking I had a clear idea of what those were. And by the end of it, I was like, maybe not so much.
Okay.
And it also, I mean, I think your scenario could actually work really well. It just means that there's a further conversation that has to happen about motive. The thing that's driving all of it is motive. Is it truly rooted in him seizing an opportunity because he felt emasculated and wanted Kathleen dead? Was he trying to make it look like an accident? If he did do it, there's so much to discuss here. But I think before we do, I should inform you of what's found in the autopsy. Do you want to get into it?
Yes.
Do you have, I think I have a photo, an actual photo of the top of her head where you can see those lacerations clearly. You can see it.
Yes.
It's pretty graphic and it's also pretty confusing. I kind of wondered and looking at it, I'm like, what the hell could make a mark like that?
I was like, is that like a piece of glass or something? Like creepers, you'll see the pictures, but they look like, almost looks like a claw looking print. It's like three distinct sharp kind of lines.
Somebody I read, I forget if this was an examiner or actually it might have been a witness actually, or some kind of someone who gave a testimony in court during the trial, because they talked about the human head in a similar way to a watermelon, how there can be one impact point where you're hit with a blunt force object, but the actual scalp can split like a watermelon. You know how there, like if you drop a watermelon, there's like one point where like the dent is, but there are cracks that go in like 3 or 4 different directions. That's kind of how they were talking about it, because you're right. They are actually like slices in the scalp, as we would learn, because there's no damage to the skull.
So weird. What the hell?
So let's get into this autopsy. I sourced the original file of her autopsy. I might include this on Reddit as well in case anybody wants to see it, but it's also completely public and available if you would like to view it yourself. It was conducted by Dr. Deborah Radish, who you will also see a picture of, I believe, on the second to last page, maybe. And present for the exam was also Dr. Kenneth Snell and Mr. Kevin Garrity. To summarize what the examiner found, this is what I pieced together. Kathleen's official cause of death was related to blunt force injuries to the head, resulting in fatal blood loss. So technically, it is the blood loss that killed her. The examiner actually shaved Kathleen's head, which we just looked at. So on the top, you can see a more accurate view of the trauma. And this is quite literally the core driver in the trial for what did or didn't happen, and later, what is conspiracy when it comes to this case. There are 7 distinct, long-shaped, deep lacerations that are noted on the top and back of the head, but as mentioned, the skull is surprisingly undamaged. There are no skull fractures, and there was no brain damage found. So this examiner also found some damage to the cartilage by the left thyroid. So this is technically a part of the larynx, which this examiner interpreted as trauma possibly related to a strangulation. Although this is somewhat contested, it is not firm. Michael's defense would run with that. And I'm just going to tell you also, like, just since we're touching on Michael's defense, like, the legal spin that you are going to see by the time we talk about the trial, I mean, that's some of the best, like, defense money can buy. I swear to God, it's kind of crazy the way they're able to take every facet of this case and poke a hole in it. It's nuts.
And I do remember that the attorney was he seemed very like thorough and believable. I remember too from the docuseries. Like I was like, damn, even I'm believing this guy. Like
that's his job. You know,
Yeah.
that's the job. I mean, they even ran focus groups, his defense team, with like the public to see like, how do you feel when his lead attorney opens with this statement? How do you feel about Michael now? Like they really did their due diligence to like,
Jesus. How did he afford that?
oh my God, we've got stuff to talk about. When
Oh my
it comes
God.
to that,
Okay.
because it is a pretty penny. So
Yeah.
aside from those 2 categories for trauma for the body that we just mentioned, the trauma to the neck that is somewhat inconclusive, and then the 7 deep lacerations on the head, additional abrasions were documented along the face, various parts of the mid-body, although many of the facial abrasions were relatively small, which I didn't know this, but sometimes it can be the opposite when you do fall down a set of stairs, or you fall in general. And the reason being is because when you're plummeting, you're technically hitting things with the protruding bones of your face. So you got to think like the brow bone, the chin, the cheekbones, the sharp edges of your face. Her abrasions didn't really look like that. And they were also, like I said, small and consistent in length for the most part. All of them. Which is a little bizarre. I wasn't really sure what to make of that, but I'll keep pressing on. But the point is, those abrasions did not seem consistent with the fall scenario. Toxicology also came back and confirmed her blood alcohol level was 0.07, which is just under the legal limit to be able to drive. So I personally, you can tell me if you feel differently, I would not consider that to be highly intoxicated at all. Especially in consideration with Michael's BS story, where he was initially feeding. He's like, we were drinking. He's like, I mean, he literally said, I think we polished off 2 bottles of wine each.
Oh my God.
Not according to the toxicology. So I don't know where
And
that's
not
coming
according
from.
to the friend she talked to that said she sounded pretty coherent.
Right. Her coworker, Helen, on the phone. Like, I was like, that's not true. I mean, maybe that was true for you, Michael. I don't think anybody tested your blood alcohol level that I saw, but Kathleen did not drink that much. She also had prescription diazepam in her system, more commonly known as Valium. Now, the toxicology report on this, because again, Michael and his defense would also run with it and be like, no, I mean, she fell. So not only was she drunk, she was high on Valium. As it turns out from the toxicology report, she only had therapeutic levels in her system, anywhere from maybe 5 milligrams to 15, they think, which is nowhere near anything that would be considered excessive or would greatly impact your motor functions, and certainly nowhere near anything that is considered a lethal dose. No other substances were found in her system. There was also an oddity here related to some things that were found in her hands. There were strands of her own hair found in her hands, which I read from the examiners. They most often relate that to a defensive tactic. When somebody is maybe being hit in the head, they go and they reach up to their head to try to defend it, and they might pull out some of their own hair. What throws a wrench in this is that what was also found in her hands were microscopic fibers of feathers. Hold on to that.
God, I remember this part. Okay.
Because we will return to that towards the end, and we're going to have a discussion ad nauseum. But the concluding component to tie all of this together in the budding mystery is the estimated time of death. This is where Michael's timeline really gets screwed. Because we cannot forget one of the clearest things Michael said on the phone at 2:41 a.m. is that she's still breathing. She's barely clinging on to life. Given the strange nature of the injuries to the head that seemed inconsistent with the fall, the fatal blood loss component that this examiner estimated it must have been blood loss over a period of probably 90 minutes to upwards of 2 hours plus before 911 was called, this examiner believes Kathleen was already dead for at least an hour and a half before, which very obviously muddies up Michael's story. Another detail outside of the finds on the body was more of a forensic approach, I guess, if we're looking at the scene as a whole. But Kathleen, her clothing, she was wearing like a t-shirt and sweatpants, like just pajamas, basically. There is a bloodied footprint, a shoe print on the back leg of Kathleen. It's on her sweatpants. It is a print that is linked to a shoe that belongs to Michael's sneaker. I can't see a scenario, even if it were a fall and he were to discover her and he's cradling her or holding her, why at any point she would have been flipped over, face down, to where the back of her leg is exposed and Michael's foot is on the back of her leg. And let us not forget, when EMTs and police arrived, they said explicitly, Michael is seen barefoot, no shoes, no socks. Should we pause there and talk a little bit just about that?
It's getting real hard for me to keep an open mind. I can just, honest to God, visualize him pinning her down and like torturing and bludgeoning her. I can see it.
That's what the examiner said. She was like, I mean, the only reason you put a foot on somebody who's dying is to keep them pinned.
Ooh, God. And I'm just remembering from the docuseries how incredibly strange his demeanor is. And it makes it really
an odd guy.
hard. He's very odd and he's awkward, but he's quirky and he can be charming in moments. And you're kind of like, what's wrong? But at the end of the day, I'm like, no, don't get swept up in that. Like this guy, something's off here. And like, that's the part of me that's like, I can see him kind of switching on a dime. And also I think the whole like being a fiction writer element of it, he could have like been having a break where he's like, I'm crafting my next thing, like he could have.
Interesting you bring that up. No, because I mean, here's the thing. He does have a dodgy history with serving in the military, but he did serve. He was in the Marine Corps. And some people brought up the possibility of PTSD. I mean, he could have absolutely had some kind of like a psychotic break. And I don't want people to lead with that as like, well, that's a defense. Or something that would be something his defense would use, I'm sure, if push came to shove, but something to consider for sure. Once again, keep forgetting what we look like. I keep toggling back when you talk, and I'm like,
yeah, I just got to take a moment and take you in again because I've just been staring at these photos. I love these new visuals. Like, I feel like I can really just sink myself in. But
how does it feel like seeing the house and everything? Do you feel like you get a sense for the scene and maybe how this was unfolding given all of what the medical examiner has found?
Yeah. I mean, I think when you just look at the picture, the Kathleen discovery photo and the way she's slumped and the amount of blood, I just forgot how much blood there was that like, it's such a tough world to imagine that was just from a quick fall and then he came in.
I'm leaning closer to what you said before, the idea of like two things could be true here. And maybe that's how the full story is told. But if I could just round out sort of what the medical examiner concludes here. This examiner assessed the nature of the injuries we just discussed and this evidence that I talked about and finalized this report as a homicide. This is when everything really does pick up and change for Michael Peterson. So, when does the tide begin to turn, really? Between the 9th and the 20th of December, there's a lot of swirling on this, right? The autopsy and the toxicology report are still waiting to be finalized. Like, those need to be finished. And I don't know that anyone is really considering, or at least outwardly considering, looking at Michael with a suspicious eye. People are just waiting to collect all of the evidence. But that day does come 11 days into this case when Michael is officially indicted for the murder of Kathleen Peterson. It was a shocking accusation, and people felt very conflicted on where this was coming from. And it was interesting because there was bad blood in the community, right? Like in this district, because Michael was well known and also had a bad rep for things he had lied about when it came to his time in the service. So people were like, is he being framed? Like, are like law officials, are they like out to get him or something? This is so obviously an accident. This is a tragedy for this family. And then there were other people who were questioning, like, is he actually guilty? Is there something to this story we don't know? And I think this divide is greatest exemplified with the children. Everybody in the beginning, including Kathleen's biological daughter, Caitlin, were all on Michael's side.
I remember that.
They were all defending him. The fracture really started to come once the evidence comes to light. And I believe the official autopsy and the photos of the body were personally reviewed with Caitlin, her daughter. She had to see her mother in that way, and Kathleen's sister. And that's when everything started to fracture. So I lost my place in the research.
Oh, no, you're
Sorry.
good. I was like, I'm ready. I also just switched my hands. My hand was gripping the mic. So
I know. With some
tough.
of like the dicier cases, like I realize I use this as like a fidget. I channel a lot of my frustration and anger like into gripping the mic. And you can hear it too. Creepers can hear it on the other side.
Wait, while we're taking a break for 2 seconds, I literally was gonna do this.
Wait, what are you doing?
It's
I'm not even looking.
I got a little sparkly cover for my mock stand.
Sparkly cover.
If there was ever going to be a shot that I could do this, but I was like, that's too much.
There might be another opportunity for it.
Listen, that's right. We buy these props and we don't know when we're going to use them.
We
but
bought
someday,
these. I think we're going to come on as Dolly Parton for some reason.
Oh.
Well, who's to say what could come?
Who knows?
The month is quite long.
Dolly and I are very good friends.
But really, I mean, to summarize all of this, some people were just on the fence about whether there was a larger story here that wasn't being told. And then came a horde of evidence in this case that I think was going to transition it to the national stage. A month after Michael has been indicted, he ends up moving around some money, and I don't know where the hell he got the money. Somehow they were able, things were liquid enough for them, and he was able to get a bond, and he got out of jail, and it was rumored to be around $850,000. Don't know where that cash came from. And
add it to the credit card bill.
Yeah, I was like, put it on the master. Put it on the master. Thank you. He then hired a defense team ahead of what was to be a trial to remember. This was no ordinary defense team. He was tapping what, to me, again, was essentially what was the best money could buy. David S. Rudolph, who was allegedly going to cost him more than $800,000 to represent him in his legal fees. But I also read that went as high as $1 million at the time. So imagine that today, like just considering inflation, how much money Michael was able to fund into his defense.
God.
So then we roll around to the documentary crew that starts filming. Because there's a great deal of time between this, because Kathleen, technically, she's killed in 2001. And then we would go all the way until 2003 before the trial's actually going to start. And in the middle of like the year before is when the documentary crew sort of approached them, and they wanted to film this as like a beat for beat, catching the prep for the trial. And again, all sort of framing it. And what they told Michael was a positive lens, and they were going to call it the staircase, proving his innocence. So it was this French director who was working with Michael and his attorney, again, sanctioned by the attorney. And the intent was just to capture things in real time, what was unfolding. But in the midst of that year leading up to this trial, there is something from Michael's past that comes up. As mentioned, he was the guardian to 2 girls, right? He had them from a previous friendship that he had with a woman who had surprisingly died in a tragic way, very similar to Kathleen's. Nobody knew about this. People knew that, like, he had adopted these 2 girls and that was from the 80s and that this woman died tragically. Nobody knew it was on a goddamn staircase.
I remember that part watching it in the docuseries being like, no way.
I mean, we have much to discuss about it. I
Yes,
was like,
yes,
I could
yes.
say
I was
something.
like-
I'm like, but I'm trying to keep my bias in a neutral place.
Yeah.
Her name was Elizabeth Ratliff, not to be confused with Ratcliffe. And from what I read, she was an American school teacher who was living in Germany in the 80s, which is where Michael and his first wife, Patricia, were also living because his wife at the time was also a school teacher. It was on a military base, I read. Now, the 2 women had met and they became fast friends. And then at the time, Elizabeth's husband, who was still alive, he met Michael. The 2 of them became fast friends and they really formed like a relationship. You know, they were Americans in Germany. And then something happened in 1983. Elizabeth's husband died in, I think, what was a military accident. Like, I think it was like a tragedy, but she had 2 little girls that were there with her. So this was when Michael and Patricia, they really stepped up and they wanted to be there for her to kind of just support her as a single mother who was kind of there doing it alone. And she was still having to teach kids. The nature of the relationship felt murky, but from everything I could piece together, it was publicly a friendship. Who's to say what was happening behind closed doors? But what do we know about the day Elizabeth did die? So 2 years later, something mysterious does happen. Elizabeth is found dead at the bottom of a staircase in her home in Germany in 1985, with Michael conveniently being the last person to have seen her alive in that home. Apparently, he was there the night before when he was helping her put her 2 daughters to bed, and then he said that he left. We don't know if that's true. By the next morning, Elizabeth's nanny walked in, and from what the nanny said, she was found in a pool of blood. Now, it's interesting because the body is taken away, and supposedly there was an autopsy performed in Germany, and the cause of death was initially ruled a cerebral hemorrhage, aka natural causes. And there was a history of this woman complaining about headaches in the past. German authorities, they signed off on it, and the autopsy at the time did not consider any of this to be suspicious, so no criminal charges or suspicions are ever raised against Michael. And in the aftermath, her 2 daughters are now completely orphaned. Michael and Patricia, they adopt them. They become the legal guardians and take them back to the United States. But now, more than 15 years now that Kathleen is dead, in 2001, the prosecution is gearing up for the trial, and they caught wind of this story. And they said, oh, this is bad. This is big time. They ordered, because Elizabeth was buried in Texas, they ordered her to be exhumed and driven to North Carolina for this same medical examiner, Dr. Deborah Radish, to perform a second autopsy. In which this autopsy, it is found there are eerily similar lacerations to the back of the skull. She rules it a homicide. 2 homicides on a staircase, with Michael Peterson being the last person to see these women. Coincidence? Tell me what you think.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I think
if it is, it's a damning one. If we play devil's advocate and we say he is innocent, it's like, that's an unbelievable coincidence. That's terrible for you.
Yeah. Do you know what I was thinking was how insane that must have been for the medical examiner? Like, I feel like that kind of stuff, I mean, if there are medical examiner creepers, weigh in, but I feel like that kind of stuff just doesn't happen often, where you're like gifted a past, like a proof point basically of like what could have happened to this new person. Like, that must have been such a big day for them. It's like very intense.
Yeah.
To exhume, because how it had been what, like 20 years since that body
It'd been
had been
15 years, I believe. Yeah, a bit more actually. Yeah, more than 15 years at this point.
God, that would have just been such an incredible, like, I guess, discovery, you could say.
Well, there's a lot of criticism against Dr. Deborah Radish for doing this because, I mean, the prosecution, they had technically ordered the body to be exhumed because she was in Texas. And a lot of people said, then why wouldn't you have a neutral person in Texas perform the second autopsy? Why did it have to go to the hands of this one medical examiner because it was going to boast your case? And a lot of people who even do believe that Michael is guilty, they're like, that really just muddies things up because now it looks corrupt.
Yeah.
Because now you're throwing it in the hands of this woman who already did Kathleen's autopsy, and if the defense is going to say, no, this medical examiner is corrupt, she's bought or something, you've shot yourself in the foot with now 2 bodies that could have been linked to Michael. That's the way people criticized it.
Yeah, they should have had a neutral party do one as well and make sure, or hopefully if they had the same exact thought, then it would have been like, who cares if they both came to the same conclusion. But that's
exactly.
A good point.
I think that they were just running with this because it was a huge discovery that, again, he hadn't even disclosed at this point. So they were like, oh, he's hiding something. So they just wanted to nail it as best they could. And I think they thought, because maybe they would never admit this, but because maybe Dr. Deborah was already familiar with the case and what was like leading up to this trial, she knew which story to look for in this corpse. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So that's the craziest find, I think, by 2003. And it sent the preparing defense, like Michael's defense team, into a goddamn spiral because they didn't know any of this. They were like, why didn't you tell us about like this relationship you had in Germany? There's another woman who died on like around you on a staircase. This is crazy. So they're just, it's a horrible situation. They're just trying to figure out how they're going to repivot their defense strategy. And now in the same year that the trial is going to start, I think other things were about to get unveiled that would throw even more turmoil into this process because there is another secret, a deeper secret, we could say, in Michael's life that disrupts the process. Now, when Michael was originally indicted, and homicide was on the table, there was a sweep done of his home. It allowed police to go in and seize the family computer, which is partially how we got some of that information where we saw that Kathleen had logged into the family email, right? It was also noted that I think around the time of Michael's arrest or just before, he seemed oddly fixated on the computer. Like people were at the house and he was constantly on the computer, like doing something, and nobody really knew what he was doing and nobody was keeping track of it. He was mass deleting files as it appeared. Now, when forensics gets a hold of that computer after it is seized, this becomes the bedrock of the secret. The forensics team is able to discover and uncover 2,500 plus images of gay porn on his computer. He also had printouts of this on and in his desk, allegedly, as well as explicit emails between him and several male escorts, one in particular from a website I think was called Military Men, where he was trying to hook up with them as late as September of that year, 2001.
Oh my God.
Some guy named Brad, by the way. These emails showed that he was seeking sexual encounters with men while married to Kathleen. When this was brought to light, it became one of the most contentious and controversial elements of this case before the trial, discussing Michael's sexuality. So this comes up, and Michael then openly admits that he's bisexual and that he has always been bisexual, and he's been honest about it with his wife for as long as they've been married. And she knew that he has had previous relationships with men. In the past, I guess the real twist here is that him and Kathleen, from the start of their marriage, had an understanding, so he said, which I'll caveat, this does exist in certain marriages, lavender marriages, let's say, where she knew that he was bisexual, but she also knew and was all right with him seeking and engaging in sex with men as long as it was in private and it was safe. This is the story he leads with. Now, the difficult scenario here is that this spells a pretty clear motive in some instances, because if we link back to the timeline of the night, we remember that Kathleen was using the family computer and more explicitly using the email address that was linked to Michael. Did she discover something that set the whole process in motion where then he snapped and was fearful the secret would get out and that she would expose him? How do you feel about that reveal, I should say, before I discuss it a little more?
Yeah, it's weird. I was like trying to reconcile the idea that I think he really enjoyed being married to Kathleen because of all of the money that came with it, the status I think they had as a couple. But I think at some point when that all starts to fade and then you're already like extremely unhappy and you've got this other part of you that you feel like you can't quite explore publicly, it's a great recipe for a disaster or a reason to get rid of somebody. Like if you're no longer going to reap the benefits from the, why you're still married to the person in the first place, like the money's gone and the status is gone. And then this other part of you where you feel like safe and free, you can't explore that. I don't know. I can just see where he could have snapped.
Do you think it's possible that she did know? That does
think-
exist in certain marriages, and there is certainly
Yeah.
pressure to keep the secret, for sure.
It's really weird. There was a very similar situation when I was growing up, and I'm not going to reveal who they were.
Really?
Yes.
Come on, spill it. Spill it.
I'm not going to reveal who they were. And he did not attempt to kill his wife or anything. He was just, I think, some sort of like financial, maybe he was like embezzling or something. But in the small southern town I grew up in, I was pretty young, and I remember the thing that everybody clung to the most was that he was openly, or he had not been open with his wife about his sexuality, but he was in fact gay, and he ended up marrying a man after he got out of prison, and like this whole thing. And in my mind, I was just thinking to myself, he went to prison, and then after he got out, I think is now married to a guy. But I just remember like thinking that in the South, I do think it's possible she could have known, but I feel like there was a part that whatever she thought she knew was not this full blown, if that makes sense. Like, I think what she thought was probably like, he's got this part of him.
Almost like a don't ask, don't tell scenario.
Yes,
yeah,
yes. And I wonder too, if like it hadn't happened in a really, really long time, and then all of a sudden he was now kind of like dabbling in it again, and she didn't know.
You know what's kind of interesting is that in these emails, because like I said, they do go back to like August and September, where he really is like revving up with this guy. I believe it's all centralized back to this one guy, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
He's revving up to have a meetup, and he like, I think even discloses in the emails, he's like, I absolutely love my wife. Like, it really backs up the scenario where he's like, my wife fulfills every loving part of my marriage, like my relationship. I just have a sexual inclination where I'm bisexual and I like to have sex with guys, but it's not an emotional thing. He was basically saying, I love my wife. This is just something that I want to do on the side. But I don't think he explicitly discloses whether or not she's in the know. So that leaves the whole thing open to interpretation of what went down on the night that she was using the family computer. But I have to imagine, put it this way, I'm like, if it really is that big of a secret, one, why allow her to get onto the computer and allow her to get onto the email and use it? And why do you have gay porn printouts? And he had printouts of the emails too, which I thought was really odd, in the desk. I'm like, that just seems like someone's not really going the extra mile to hide much of anything.
But you know what? I'm thinking that maybe he didn't feel taken care of by her in that way anyways. So it's like, it seemed like she was a very busy person that was pretty like involved with her work. So I wonder if she just wasn't even really giving him the time of day or paying enough attention. And he was like, doesn't really matter at this point. Like,
so almost like he didn't. Yeah. So he didn't care if it was found.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't a serious secret to keep. Mm-hmm. But if it wasn't a serious secret to keep, why kill her?
I don't know. I feel like, maybe I just do think it was a serious secret to keep.
You do. But that's
I do.
That's what I was saying. I was like, then it's confusing to me, like, why he wouldn't go the extra mile to hide the secret, like if it was that big.
I think what I'm trying to say is like both things again can be true in that like he was printing those things out and had it all on the computer because he's like, I don't really get attention from my wife anyways. So she's never going to notice this stuff. And like that plays into the fact that he wasn't happy in that marriage, which eventually would lead to him killing her.
I suppose so. It could also, I mean, it's a scenario where it could have been bait in an odd way as well, where like it is a serious secret to keep, but he had kept it loose in terms of how he was hiding it and maybe wanted her to find some of it so it could create the scenario of the blow up and the fight.
I think that's
to have an excuse, not an excuse, but have the drive to kill her. Is that where we're going?
I think that's a really good assumption.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because I feel like I don't want to like waffle on it too much, but I know that there's some component of it that has to do with this, but it was a controversial thing when it came to the trial because people were saying you're not really discussing like the inflammatory nature of an affair. People are using his bisexuality to like weaponize it against him because it's going to sway a jury no matter what. That's part of what his defense would lead with.
Yeah, and I think they were kind of smart to think about it that way because, and I hate to say this, but I think in the South that you don't stand as strong of a chance in other parts of the country for that to not be weaponized against you. I'm just going to put it that way.
Well, in 2001 or 2003 especially, that was a really great concern. And a lot of people said, well, it could have been displayed to the courts saying that, like, yeah, Michael was engaging with an affair, and that's just like the bedrock of it. People were making an argument saying they didn't have to go the extra mile to share that it was with men, because again, that could have unintended ramifications for swaying the jury one way or the other. This jury truly went through it too. I'm going to tell you, they literally brought them to the home.
Oh my
They made
God.
them do a walkthrough of the house and like brought them to the staircase so they could see the blood splatter up close. They brought them out by the pool. It's crazy what goes down in this trial. It's
Oh
like
my
absolutely
God.
insane. And they did it for months.
I didn't even know you could do that with a jury.
Oh, there's a lot. Did you ever watch People versus OJ? There's so much that goes down with like the jury. I mean, depending upon like, it's all coming from the defense, because the defense was petitioning it to be like, you've got to come and see this place in person so you can put yourself in those shoes to see, would you have been able to hear somebody screaming from outside if you were out by the pool? As it turns out, you don't.
Huh.
So they're pretty damn good. I got to give it up to that defense team for like throwing a wrench in every part of it. So that's been established. We understand that Michael has this bad track record where not only is he connected to a past death that has now been ruled a homicide of another woman on the staircase. There is the gay porn and male escorting component that could have been revealed on the computer. But we also learned that Michael is not somebody to be trusted because of his previous experience where he was running for mayor and he lied about his military experience. What had basically happened was that when he was running for mayor, he led with a story that he often led with in social circles where he was inflating his rank, and he was also telling these highly fictionalized and crazy stories about his time in combat, and said he was discharged because of a combat injury. And he talked about this crazy story where his friend was hit and he was trying to like run to him, and then he got hit in the leg. Turns out, and this came out even before the murders, this came out during his run for mayor, because politicians will always dig up the dirt, baby. He was in a car accident in Japan, which is why he was in the hospital. He was never injured in combat. He did serve in the military, but he was never injured in combat. And he lied and said that he left with a Purple Heart. I think he was decorated with 2 other medals he didn't have. So that pretty much not only shot his credibility and chances of running for mayor, where he had to leave the race, but Kathleen lost friends. I mean, families wouldn't talk to her, and there was an immense like social humiliation component to something that was otherwise like, I don't know, they were sort of like a buzzing couple who threw parties in town, and now they kind of had to hang their heads in shame for the next year. That in conjunction with the financial issues piling on top of each other, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. All of this is.
My upper lip, Jesus, it's really going. She's really
I know,
going.
I'm like, let me do a visual check on you. The glasses are back.
The lights were so bright. I was like, let me use the props that are at my disposal.
Yes.
The thing is, I thought you were looking at me the whole time.
No, I think we're opposite, where you watch me while I tell the story, and I get so locked into the visuals that you put up.
I think most people are like you. I think most people really do like the visual guide, and they kind of latch onto that for the case. But we've established pretty much everything that's going to come out of the woodwork here. So now that we have a cumulative POV of the evidence, where does the trial go? Like I said, this is one of the longest trials in North Carolina's history, because at some point I started to question, I'm like, is this even about defending Michael anymore? Because it kind of just seems like a boys like pissing match between the prosecution and the defense, where they're like, I'm going to poke holes in your tactic and I'm going to poke holes in your tactic. And at a point I'm like, you guys are going way overboard. I'm like, just call it.
Yeah.
Really just call it. But we got a lot here. So at this point, we've got the crime scene photos, we've got the autopsy photos that have been shown to the children. And just to touch on where that fractured, it was Kathleen's biological daughter and her sister who were the only 2 who broke from the family. And they were like, Michael is guilty. His children, including the adoptive ones, who it came out that like their biological mother, who died in 1985, looks like she died of a homicide. They even had the nanny come and testify in the US from Germany. They still stuck with him, and they still stick with him to this day. Saying he's innocent.
I remember them being kind of, I don't want to be judgy, but I remember them being kind of strange in the documentary, if I'm remembering correctly.
I mean,
they were just
they've
very
had an odd
awkward
life circumstance. You know, like their mother, both their parents died in really terrible and tragic ways when they were very young, and then they were adopted by Michael Peterson and
I
his
know.
former wife, Patricia, who I should tell you, Patricia is just as eccentric and odd as he is. So I can't even imagine, like, if it's Stockholm Syndrome or they just grew up in an environment that was just this strange. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But let's assess what the prosecution is laying out here. So we have a scenario where Kathleen, let's say, used the family computer. We know she did this for a fact, and she needs to use that email. It's all confirmed by the forensic sweep, by the phone call. She maybe had an inclination that Michael may have been bisexual, maybe not. But finding the porn, finding the emails could have resulted in this blowup. Michael claims she knew about it, was okay with it. The prosecution says absolutely not. Hell no. This was the final straw for her. So Michael is then painted as a liar, you know, from all of his past, and we can't believe that any of his testimony is credible. And the prosecution is saying that she confronted him and he couldn't take the thought of the social embarrassment of what it would mean after the failure of Mare, after, you know, getting exposed for not really getting wounded in the military, losing all of the money, not being a working novelist, and now Kathleen leaves him and possibly exposes this other side of his sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it could have been too much to bear, and he completely snapped, and he killed her. It's a lot of ammunition that's leading towards that. Is it feeling credible to you so far, just in that scenario where, like, he kills her, let's say at 11:30 during the confirmation, which is right within that window of 11:08 to 11:53 after the phone call where she was like, "Could you send this thing to my email?" And then the email does come at 11:53, but she never opens it. Was it within that window where the fight broke out and she was beaten to death, and then it became a scenario where Michael spent the next few hours trying to figure out how he was going to cover his tracks and sell this story?
That definitely lands for me. It also lands for me because I feel like her going to work on something at 11:08 p.m., he was probably like, once again, I am not her focus, is what I also was kind of thinking.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny to, like, dissect that, because in one way, he may feel that he's completely neglected in terms of attention, because he does seem to like a lot of attention. But she is also the sole breadwinner. So when it comes to her work, I'm always curious about whether it's a self-preservation thing from his POV, where he's like, well, she has to work because that's how we afford our lifestyle, even though we're drowning. But if she's gone, then the whole thing's gone. But I think that's a really interesting spin out from this, because when we talk about the financial component of the motive, Kathleen did have a life insurance policy. And if she were, you know, to have fallen down a set of stairs, that life insurance policy for an accident certainly would have paid out. And it was rumored to be roughly around $1.4 million. Could that have been the bailout that Michael was looking for in conjunction with a potential confrontation over the gay porn?
I certainly think it could have been. I also can't shake the feeling that he was thinking to himself, I've started my life over again before. I can do it again.
From, like, moving on from a previous relationship and
Yeah.
then meeting Kathleen in the 90s. Yeah, it's entirely possible. I think he's resilient in the way that he is able to keep crafting the narrative that pushes him forward. He's very forward thinking in that way. That is interesting to just see how he operates through the trial and the web of lies, whether they are lies or not, that he's spinning. But there is some additional evidence that's found in the home that I think further supports the prosecution's case, something that we haven't really talked about thus far. We mentioned the bloody footprint on the back of her sweatpants, right? That's still not really explained. Michael kind of says that it was in the heat of, like, trying to pick her up, trying to save her. But there's other blood found in the home. On the floor, they would do like some kind of test with a special light for this, but what they found were there were bloody footprints of his from his sneakers that had been wiped before police arrived, which explained the paper towels that were sort of scattered all over the floor. He had said previously that he was trying to, like, put pressure on the blood or, like, clean up the blood to help her. There is also blood found in other parts of the home that we don't have an explanation for. There is a droplet of blood that was allegedly found in the kitchen, I believe somewhere close to a counter or cabinet area, and then there is another droplet of blood that was found by the front door. It's difficult to say exactly what this means, but I'm curious for your POV on it. to me, it sounds like he was traveling, moving around the house, trying to clean things, situate things, set up things, but I don't know.
To me, it feels like panic. It feels like, all right, what am I supposed to? I feel like those 2 hours or 3 hours, but like till 2:41 a.m. was him just stalling and wondering what the hell he was going to do and running around that house like I don't know.
A little bit of cleaning. But I mean, according to his story, he doesn't have much of a record of doing that because he said he was outside pretty much the entire time. And then the second he came in and saw this, he was there with her, calling 911. We just don't have an explanation for those little blood splatters.
I feel like I'm interrupting so much. But
No, that's fine, please.
Okay, I feel like she could have also been alive during this time. I feel like she could have like truly
been bleeding out.
Clinging on to life, and he's running around the house going, "I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm sorry. I don't want to do this to you." And then that could also explain some of the panic. Is he's like, "Okay, actually, I could save her," and like there could be a world where she was like, I won't ever like tell anybody about this, like, but please like help me. And he's like trying to figure out if he's going to help her or not. I don't know why I can't shake that. I need to let that go.
No, I mean, I think it's possible. It's worth exercising those theories. And we do have some evidence that she was bleeding out for an extended period of time. We don't know if she was conscious or unconscious. Maybe there's something to be said about her trying to get up at some point, and that could make sense as to why the bottoms of her feet have blood, and then he kicks her back down with the footprint that is on the back of her sweatpants. I think that's entirely possible that she was alive for a period of time and he was there with her.
Yeah, I do too.
But there's also something in that scenario where if we're going with this beating version of the story, what kind of lacerations are made by a murder weapon like that? And more importantly, where is the alleged murder weapon? The prosecution doesn't really have anything like that. And then all of a sudden, Kathleen's sister comes out of the woodwork.
Oh, God.
And she has a really interesting thing to share. She remembered that she gifted Kathleen and Michael, maybe a year or two prior, a blowpoke. It was a blowpoke that she said could have created the shape on the back of her sister's head. And police return to the home. You know, prosecution is like, we're going to go find that goddamn blowpoke. They searched every inch of that house with not only canines, but a metal detector. Nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. So if that was the murder weapon, or if it wasn't, why is it missing, I guess? But if that was the murder weapon, is that going to be the key that unlocks the final nail in the coffin where the prosecution is going to be able to nail Michael for murder? Do you think that, I mean, I thought that was interesting that the sister immediately could relay the shape of the lacerations to the blowpoke. It seems like an odd choice for a murder weapon, but maybe not, based on the proximity of where it was in the home.
Because I forgot about that detail and I had the laceration image open. When you said that, I was like, oh, yes, that does look like a blowpoke.
You think so? Yeah.
Yes, I really do. And it kind of explains also maybe why there was no skull damage, because I feel like those are that you could hit somebody with that and still like kind of hurt them and knock them out, but it wouldn't be enough to like fully crack the skull. Like it's not super, super dense. It's like a thin thing, but it would still hurt like hell to get hit with it.
When I did see the shape of what a blowpoke, and specifically the one that they had looked like, I completely tracked with it. And I'm like, I think that theoretically could have done what the prosecution is suggesting he did with it. But the issue is if we don't have it, then it's difficult to prove it. Right. And then in the middle of this, I think we also had some testimony here from Dr. Henry Lee, who we've discussed before. And he's actually a terribly uncredible person historically when it comes to testifying for these trials. So he has historically had misleading testimonies, and I don't think he was a good person to be tapped to support the case for the prosecution. And the prosecution also called upon Dwayne Deaver. He was there to give expert testimony on some of the abnormalities with blood splatter. That's his forte. Terrible choice. Another terrible choice to have up there because he wildly inflated his expertise, which completely shot his credibility. He said something on the stand, I believe, where he's like, I have looked at over 200, cases just like this. It was later uncovered that he had only ever done, I think, 3 blood splatter recreations in his entire career, and never one that had to do with recreating the blood splatter of a fall.
Oh, God.
So they kind of just tapped this guy who was like positioning himself as an expert to then come in and say, I could recreate this. Like, if you were beaten, that's what this would look like. Did not bode well for them in the long run. We'll get into that later. There's more to speak of his career. And then they have the nanny, of course, from Germany. She testifies regarding the Ratliff murder and the staircase in 1985. It became a circus, right? Like I was saying before, the two legal teams kind of pissing on each other, one dramatic dig after another. The jury doesn't know which way to look, which way's up. And then on top of all of this chaos, just before the closing statements from the defense, the alleged murder weapon reappears. It shows up out of nowhere. And I think it was actually found and turned in by one of Michael's sons. The blowpoke is allegedly found in the garage of the home, which had previously been searched with not only the canines, but the metal detector. This is where things get tricky because now the prosecution, they're celebrating early and they're like, we've got the murder weapon, you know, like this is the smoking gun and all of it. When it came to a forensic check of the blowpoke, there was nothing found on it that could really tell a story of murder because when it was found, it was not only dirty, it had cobwebs on it, indicating it probably hadn't been touched in a very, very long time. And they're like, well, never mind. They're like, I mean, it's been years since the trial started, so it could have just accumulated. They go ahead to test it. They're looking for blood. They're looking for DNA. They're looking for hair. And they're looking for indents, evidence that it was used to strike something. None of which is found.
Damn.
None of which is found, which is really kind of setting up I think a bad platform for the prosecution because they're like, we've been, because they didn't have access to the murder weapon, they'd been leading with that story for basically the entirety of the trial. They were like, you killed her with this blowpoke. And then once the defense gets it, again, very convenient, the defense is able to get their hands on that a week before closing statements or just before, I guess. And they're like, unfortunately, there's no evidence that this was used in any kind of a combat scenario or for murder. So what does that say about this?
God. That was going to be their proof point.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, between that and like the shoddy credibility of the guy who's coming in to talk about blood splatter, really, I think what we're talking about is evidence for a motive, which really just links back to the gay porn and the infidelity.
Yeah.
At the root of all of it. I mean, unless we want to go further with the money scenario, but it's hard. It's really hard to like make sense of that unless we were totally missing the mark when it came to thinking what the murder weapon could have been. So at this point, it just created a lot of confusion, but ultimately there has to be a decision because the defense poked holes in every scenario with this. And they were like, no, I mean, the blood splatter, it could have, of course, been from the fall if she was trying to climb up the walls. Blood splatter is inconsistent. There's really nobody who has an expertise on it. They were talking about the droplets of blood found in the kitchen at the front door. They're like, that could have been transfer from like the EMTs of like getting the body in and out or Michael running back to the kitchen. Like they just, and when they brought the jury to the home, and because the prosecution was like, he would have been able to hear her if she did fall. The jury, they're like, you would have been able to hear a woman fall down that staircase if she was screaming out for help for hours. When the defense brings the jury to the home and bring them out by the pool, there's a fountain at the pool, which is pretty loud. And the whole jury agreed. They were like, we can't hear anything because they put somebody inside on the staircase to scream for help.
It was you in that costume.
Baby, that's me. That's me on the corner of La Cienega and Santa Monica.
Sorry.
Just absolutely screaming. But you know what I mean, though? Like, they did a good job, I think, of building up a scenario where it casts doubt, a shadow of doubt on the whole thing. In some of the final closing statements, just before the trial was going to reach its end, I believe the prosecution led with a quote here that I found really chilling, where they said, "These walls are talking. Kathleen is talking to us through the blood on the walls, and she is screaming at us for truth and justice." And on October 10th, 2003, a Durham County jury found Peterson guilty of the murder of Kathleen, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So even though the prosecution had their issues with their case, they still sunk it. You know, they still landed where they wanted to. Before I'm going to tell you where this is about to go, any thoughts on the ending of the trial?
Well, now I'm like, wait, was there an appeal? I'm like trying to rack my brain about what I remembered. Okay. Well, I mean, I was fixating on the image of them kind of like he looks very like jovial in the courtroom, like laughing with maybe his daughters or something. And I was just thinking to myself, I forgot how, I think you described it perfectly at the beginning of the podcast, how performative of a person he really was. Because I think this was exciting for him. He's very odd. And I think but the performance in the courtroom, I remember that being something that I was just like, I'm also not digging this guy because of his demeanor in general.
Yeah.
But I remember I did like the defense attorney a lot, and like it is an amazing exercise, like you were saying, of just like how a good attorney can really like almost get you out of something if you did it, I guess. But
it just becomes a conversation of like who can win the opinion.
Yeah.
The opinion of the jury, really, because when you reiterate to them that their job is to review the evidence presented, not their personal opinion or the narrative they built in their head, this is the evidence presented, that muddies up a lot because there are a lot of confusing moving parts to this that even I don't understand at this point.
Yeah. I'm also definitely feeling the whole like pissing match thing, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, I mean, these are the two titans because, I mean, the prosecution, it was led by lead DA, I believe his name was Jim Harden, and he also had the assistant DA, who I think you'll see on the last page. I think her name was Frida Black.
I was going to say, Frida Black might be one of my costumes this year. I'm not sure.
She was not there to like mess around, to be honest. Like she was not at all. But I mean, they've got the DA involved with this versus this like titan of a defense attorney. So like it was going to be a showdown when it came to, I don't know, sort of legal dick wagon.
Yeah.
Can I say dick on this? I'll mention it anyway. 141.
Okay.
141.
Like, I hope you can.
Coming out of this mouth, I don't know about that. I don't know about all that.
I'm sure Gladys knows a lot about that.
No. However, our story is not quite over just yet because you hit on it early. Appeals began on behalf of Peterson regarding judicial errors around 2006. And most of this was like kind of stonewalled, I would say. The original expert blood splatter used by the prosecution, and in large part the reason Michael was found guilty, because he was able to convince the jury that this was a blood splatter from a beating. He is now in some extremely hot water. Dwayne Deaver, as mentioned, he's one of the principal witnesses against Peterson, had been suspended from his position. In 2010 to 2011, an independent audit by the SBI revealed widespread problems where analysts had mishandled evidence and overstated findings in dozens of cases. Specifically, Deaver was found to have withheld specific test results related to blood evidence and exaggerated his credentials and had given misleading testimony under oath in multiple trials, resulting in the false imprisonment of many people. I read someone who went away for 17 years for a crime they did not commit.
Oh my God.
Which now meant all of his previous cases needed to be examined, including Michael Peterson's. Dwayne was eventually fired from the SBI, and by the way, faced no legal consequences. I'm like, surely this guy went away to prison for falsely giving a false testimony and putting someone away for almost 2 decades. Nothing.
Oh my God.
It's just like...
Do you know what it is? Like, I was just thinking this when we were talking about like the pissing match. You do forget, just as a civilian, that this is all a business. This is all a business for these guys.
It shouldn't be. I mean, like,
crazy.
these are like, yes, the thing is he's brought on by the prosecution and of course paid, but like the prosecution is supposed to be impartial to like doing this kind of dirty work. And not to say they don't, that would be naive, but like, this is what happens when you bring shoddy people up who misguide a story, is that when it all comes out later, it puts people who actually should be away in prison in jeopardy. Like, it puts their cases in jeopardy. And that's exactly what happened, because what it meant is that by 2011, Michael Peterson had another chance at this. So Judge Orlando Hudson, who presided over the original trial, he reviewed the findings and ruled that Deaver had misled the jury in Peterson's case. And because Deaver's testimony was so central to the prosecution's theory that the blood proved the beating, not a fall, the judge ruled that Peterson was entitled to a new trial in 2011. Peterson was released on bail in December 2011 after 8 years in prison for murder, and he awaited a new trial for several years, which during this, I believe his defense team prepared to challenge the state's sort of weakened case against him, and he wasn't going to go with his original counsel. You know, that guy was a shark and he could no longer afford him. So now he had like, what do they call that? Like a state appointed attorney, court appointed.
Like pro bono, or I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, where they have to they just have to do it because they're assigned to you. In 2017, instead of risking another trial and possible conviction, they actually did something which was inadvertently kind of smart, where Peterson entered an Alford plea to manslaughter, maintaining his innocence but acknowledging the state had enough evidence to convict. He was sentenced to time served, which subsequently meant he walked free. You heard that correctly. Michael Peterson, to this day, is a free man who allegedly is still living in Durham, North Carolina.
I feel like I remembered that.
He has gone on to publish additional books. There was one that I believe he published, to give, credit to honesty here, he did publish one about his experience in the trial, in the death of his wife. And while I couldn't confirm this, allegedly, all of the proceeds of that went directly to charity. Again, it's a big what if. But the doubt from all of this mess, and what really killed the prosecution here, I believe, is also the direct contributor of the owl theory that came about before his second trial. So what do you know about this?
Not much, and you probably can understand why. The second I heard somebody bring up that she might have been killed by an owl, I was like,
Stu,
I'm not doing this to myself.
Here's the
but
thing.
I'm strapped in for you.
Well, because we covered this on Strange and Suspicious. I don't know if you remember. And when I walked in, I was like, everybody's going to be on the same page with me. I'm like, he killed his wife. You could not believe the way my jaw ricocheted off the floor when Nanette led with the owl theory. I was like,
no way.
I thought I was talking to a different person. I was like, Nanette. I was for a second, like in between filming, I was like, are you doing this for like the cameras or something? And she was like, no, look at the evidence. And I was like, what? An owl?
Like, I don't even know how to process what we're about to talk about.
Well, so let me just first trace back where the theory came from, because it is crazy. So this happened, I'm not going to gloss over it. It happened back in 2009, technically, and it was proposed by a then, or I guess previous neighbor of the Petersons. His name was T. Lawrence Pollard. You might have a picture of him on the last page.
Yeah. He's a character.
So, he was a neighbor of theirs, and he ended up suggesting that Kathleen might have been attacked by a barred owl outside. And maybe she was outside the house. This happened. She ran inside. And that maybe her injuries were consistent with that kind of attack, where she was trying to run up the stairs, grabbed her hair, which is why the hair is in her hands. And maybe she fell down the stairs from there. And the lacerations, the blood loss, the fall, all of it just meant that she was like disoriented and clinging to life and trying to get herself on her feet, consistently falling, all while Michael is dozing off by the pool. This is what this guy is putting forward. And I'm like, that's even more unbelievable than the fall scenario. Why would anybody lead with the owl thing in North Carolina?
Yeah.
So let's just go through the supporting evidence, okay? Because I was like, I'm going to exercise this in a way where I'm playing devil's advocate with myself. And there are some things here that, I can't come up with an explanation for as somebody who firmly believes Michael killed his wife. So I'm curious to see what your take is on it. Mm-hmm. The scalp lacerations. Kathleen had 7 deep gashes on her scalp. This is well established. We know this. We've been assuming it came from a beating, right? Possibly with the blowpoke. Critics noted that they looked parallel to talon marks. Not typically really like blunt force trauma or even stair edge cuts if she did fall, because it's important to remember her skull was not fractured. So consistent, sharp claw marks that basically slit open her scalp looked more close to what this was than the idea of someone hitting her with a blunt force object or hitting the steps of a staircase. Mm-hmm. And when you do look at it side by side, it does look like a 1-to-1 comparison. It looks very close. And I actually didn't know very much about barred owls and how strong their talons are. They have the grip strength, I read, of over 200 pounds. Did you know that?
My God. No, I did not. I mean, I know owls are freaking lethal, but I did not know that. I also am realizing I said they looked like claws earlier, so I have to take this into consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was because you were like teeing us up for the owl theory.
No, I wasn't even thinking about it.
But there is a way. I mean, they look like claws for sure.
do.
They
They
look
do.
like talons. So I was like, I can concede to that. But I'm like, also, I can see a world where maybe a murder weapon was used. And this is the watermelon effect, where like the scalp just split. Or maybe it was the weapon that split and it just happened to look like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have the issue of the microscopic owl evidence, the tiny feather fragments that were found all over her hands. Now, there are only a few birds. I thought this was all birds. There are only a few birds that actually have microscopic feathers, and they have them on their talons. Barred owls
What?
would be one of those.
Okay. In my mind, I'm like, did she not have like some sort of like feathered jacket or something that she
It could have been
wearing?
that. It could have been that. That's what I was saying. I'm like, because like when I heard that, I'm like, there's no way I'm letting this happen right now. Like I'm not letting my mind shift to this. And I was like, down pillows, down comforter.
Yeah.
A jacket, maybe. It was cold outside. I'm like, could have been microscopic feathers, but because they're microscopic, they couldn't exactly tell, what exactly the source was, but it's certainly possible it could have come from some down, right?
Yeah.
If she was handling it. We just don't have any evidence that she was. And this kind of seems to back up the owl theory if we're keeping it just in her hands. So then we have the defensive injuries. Kathleen had small scratches on her face and hands. We already noted this. And according to the autopsy, they were very consistent in size, right? So we didn't quite align with the fall scenario, but it could have aligned with something else that was attacking her that was consistent in size, which could have been a murder weapon, but also could have been the size of talons. And then there comes the component of, I'm like, well, are there even these owls there? Are they in Durham, North Carolina?
I bet they are. Yeah, we had
They are.
owls growing up. Yeah. I've got owls outside here.
That's because they're following you at this point.
That's right.
They're coming for you. So there were owls, and they can be aggressive. They're not always aggressive, but they can be. And they can especially be aggressive during nesting season, which I was like, well, I kept trying to poke holes in this, and then it kept getting slapped up in my face that it was like, nope, it was nesting season, as it turns out. And I'm like, what? What?
That's so weird. But she would have had to disturb the nest, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, they can sometimes attack, I believe, if they just feel threatened because you're in the general vicinity of their nest. They have been known to attack people before. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
So it's possible, given that she had defensive wounds and some defensive evidence with her hair in her hands and the microscopic feathers, maybe there was a talon attack to the back of her scalp. That's what they're leading with. It was a nesting season. Granted, it was a little bit early in the season because it was December, but it would make sense. It's just a wildly far-fetched narrative to explain, basically back to the original theory here, that Michael was innocent and that this was some kind of a bizarre accident. And we have to put it in context with some of the evidence from the prosecution side of the story saying that this was murder. That still doesn't make sense. Why does the blowpoke, the supposed murder weapon, have no evidence of impact, blood, DNA, or hair?
I'm also wondering the lacerations from the very first woman that died, the biological mom of the kids they adopted. Weren't her lacerations supposed to be pretty similar to these?
I think they were just lacerations to the back of the head. I don't know that they were visually similar, and there have been no public pictures released of that. I actually was listening to a podcast that talked about that specifically, and we have to remember that her body was embalmed, but it was upwards of 17 years later. So a lot of the tissue that we would have been able to compare one-to-one to Kathleen's was decomposing.
Because I was just thinking, if they found the murder weapon for that, or they figured out what those lacerations were from, maybe you could help explain what these were, if it wasn't a blowpoke.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the blowpoke seems highly specific to just Kathleen and Michael, because how many people have a blowpoke, and what are the chances of him using a blowpoke in both scenarios? That almost seemed
in both
impulsive
scenarios would
if it
be
was a murder.
strange. Yeah, but I was thinking, I think a lot of people have them if they've got a fireplace around. Like I know we have them, but not here, not in this apartment, but like in my parents' house.
I was like,
like my fireplace right here.
You got a blowpoke?
But it's weird though, because it really does look like. Because I was just starting to think, I was like, is there any world where they could have put that thing there and dusted it up and put cobwebs on it or something to make it look like
No, from the pictures I saw, because one of the first things they did, the defense, which again was so damn smart, is by when it was found, like when the son was like, I think I found the blowpoke, they brought in a photographer with a high powered camera to capture high definition photos of the blowpoke. And that would have been an easy hole to poke, I think, if it looked like it was intentionally dirtied up, you know? So I think that it was actually there collecting dust and collecting dirt naturally. Whether it was placed and maybe diligently cleaned or maybe even replaced, you know, like maybe like the defense knew that that was the murder weapon. They went out, they found an exact model, and then they placed it there and hoped that over the course of a year plus for the trial to start, that it would just naturally collect dust and cobwebs. And this was like a long con effort to set this up to dispel that the blowpoke was the murder weapon, the central theory of the prosecution.
Yeah. God,
And it worked. It worked in the long run, I will say.
Maybe the blowpoke is just a red herring in all of this. Like there just was a different murder weapon and we just can't figure out what the hell it was because it was something strange.
That's what I was thinking too. There's also a conspiracy, which I didn't go down to any conspiracies here, that Michael's son, one of them who came home to the house actually in the middle of this before paramedics arrived, was actually in on what happened. Didn't know like it was premeditated, but when saw what was happening, he handed his son the murder weapon and said, "You have to get rid of this. Police are about to be here." And this is alleged because it's a conspiracy, but some people have said that could explain the tiny droplet of blood that was found at the front door. That maybe it dripped off of the murder weapon while this kid was running out to go dispose of it somewhere. Again, don't really know. But even if we've exercised the owl theory here, and there's something to it, but it really doesn't have any sort of impact or context to any of this case because Michael is a free man. You know, it doesn't contextualize anything even more for me personally. And whatever really did happen to Kathleen, I think is haunted by all of this. You know, it's the misery of what's left behind, and to her family that still holds firm and believes that Michael had something to do with this in one way or another. The silver lining here is that her biological daughter, who does still believe Michael is responsible, in 2002, while the criminal case was still unfolding, Caitlin, the daughter, filed a wrongful death suit against Michael Peterson. She had initially supported Michael in the weeks before, or after Kathleen's death, before some of the autopsy results came out. But after she saw the crime scene, she saw her mother's body, she turned against him. And in 2007, a Durham County court awarded Caitlin $25 million in damages against Michael. This was largely symbolic because when I heard that, I'm like, where's the $25 million coming from?
I'm like, they have that in Durham? Just hanging around?
Oh, I was just like, it was a symbolic thing where basically what it meant was that Michael had, at this point, he'd already spent any of his liquid money on his legal defense, which was in the millions. So he was essentially bankrupt. It meant that Caitlin wasn't going to collect anything close to that figure, but she was going to be entitled to whatever was financially recoverable based on her mother's death. So that judgment legally cemented Michael's responsibility for Kathleen's death because it was true in a civil court context, I read, regardless of what the criminal retrial was going to say later on. Kathleen's estate ultimately would go to her daughter Caitlin because of this, not Michael Peterson, her spouse. And although I couldn't confirm this entirely, there are some reports that life insurance policy was paid out, and it was not paid out to Michael. It did go to her daughter Caitlin, which I do think is the silver lining in this because of that lawsuit that made her the primary beneficiary. Now, we have talked about this ad nauseum, but we have truly reached the end of this story, and I feel that I'm still in a place where I'm a little shaky about how I feel about it as a whole. But I just want to get your final closing thoughts and statements for what you think really happened on the night of December 9th to Kathleen Peterson.
I do believe that there was some pretty serious tension between them. I think that she was probably still trying to save a lot of face, still trying to keep the family financially afloat. I think she probably had a lot of pressure on her. I think he had a lot of guilt probably about that. I think he had a lot of love for her, actually, genuinely somewhere. I think he was wrestling with his sexuality. I think there were so many things that were going on. And for him, it was just, I'm actually surprised. I was thinking this. I'm like, I'm shocked that he actually didn't take his own life, that he chose to take hers. Allegedly, if he did do this, I do believe that he did this to her. But I feel like it was just sort of the drinking and then her going back on the computer and then the discovery potentially of the messages with Brad. The porn, I could see it all in my mind, just like that one moment where he's like, screw it. It's all over now. Like, you know, and I can see that scenario, and I think I can see her bleeding out because I think that there was genuinely a lot of love for her there. And like, she provided him with a certain sense of like security that I don't think he felt within himself. So I can also see him like hating himself for doing it, but also just like knowing he had to go through with it, but panicking at the same time. I just feel like this.
Yeah, when you cross the threshold and it's too late.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear from you which piece of evidence swayed you the most to feel like, oh, maybe he didn't do this. Was it the murder weapon?
The murder weapon was because I think I was tracking 1-to-1 with the prosecution for most of it. I don't know how you felt through the process of like seeing how they set it up, but I'm like, I do think there's too much here that's left in the dark for there have not to been some element of homicide in what went down on that night. So my question always was, what is the murder weapon? So I think it just could have been closer to what you said, that maybe it might have been a non-starter where they just picked the wrong murder weapon and ran with it. And it was also never found, which added to like the conspiracy. And maybe they had already, truth be told, it's even a crazy thing to imagine, but his defense team, they could have known that that wasn't the murder weapon. And they just decided to run with this where they were like, well, where is that blowpoke? And he said, well, I already got rid of that. That's already gone. And they're like, how about we replace it? Leave it for a year and plant it so that when we're at the end of the trial before closing statements, we'll find it. And it looks dusty, dirtied up, like it's never been used. And when they go to test it, because the prosecution has led with thinking that's the murder weapon, it's going to be a non-starter and it's going to shoot their credibility. That's a genius move from a defense standpoint.
And it seems like, what's his name? Daniel?
The attorney?
David Rudolph. Yeah. I mean, I remember him being so thorough and intelligent. From what I remember from the docuseries, I could see him being like, that's perfect. Yeah, we'll use that and run with it.
But it's also, it's a red herring in a way because it pulls our focus away from what the real murder weapon could have been. Because I do think Kathleen was beaten. I do.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I would need like a forensic or maybe a medical examiner's context for that, for like what kind of murder weapon could have created lacerations that look like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously something really sharp. And I just was like, is it, but it looks like almost like glass, like really like.
Once you said that, I couldn't really let it go. I was like, did he like start just cutting up the back of her head?
That's kind of what I was thinking, but it is weird.
Like almost if he took a knife or something.
Yeah.
But maybe you would be able to see that from like the ridges in the skin. I don't know.
But it's the kind of like watermelon thing you were explaining though. Then I have to like question, I'm like, did he hit her with a piece of glass like one time and then it created the other two like little things off the side? Like, because that's
one theory.
It is just really weird. Whatever he used, that I was trying to just think of something that's sharp that has three edges to it, or like three.
It's just like, what are the odds that if he did murder her and he used a weapon and it was like rage filled and spur of the moment, what are the odds that it would create such an ambiguous and confusing wound? You know, that's like the weird thing. I'm like, how lucky are you?
Yeah.
In that odd way?
Yeah.
I do think there is something to be said about her being alive and struggling for a point where we've got blood on the bottom of the feet, which says that she was up and trying to stand or walk, and then his boot print on the back of her. To me, I'm like, this is all spelling a struggle.
The boot print, to me, I think is almost like the worst. I feel like that's the most damning thing for me, because that indicates he was like, you're not going anywhere.
And also the fact that he decides to take his shoes and socks
shoes off. Yeah.
And had gone through the process. This was proven. He went through the process of wiping up bloodied boot prints that went all the way back to the laundry room. I'm like, who does that when you're supposedly cradling your wife who's clinging to life? So you say on the phone with 911 and people show up and you just paper toweled the floor?
He didn't testify, did he?
I don't believe so.
No. I don't think he did.
No.
Probably a very smart move. I feel
always,
like
you never testify in your own murder trial.
Yeah.
But Stu, that is really like the full account of what I've got on the staircase. And like I said, the place that it stands today is that Michael is a free man living in Durham, North Carolina. I don't know how he affords his life because he didn't get really any of Kathleen's estate from what I read.
Yeah.
But he's out there.
That's, oh God. I kind of forgot that he ended up getting out. Well, I'm glad my little brother just moved from Durham, so thank God.
Blake or John? John, right?
John, yeah. He's
why do I think he was in the place that Zeb Quinn was from? Ashland?
Asheville. That was
Asheville. Yes, okay.
God, well, first of all, that was so much thorough research. Holy
I know.
crap.
I did not intend.
So
I was
good.
like, I'm going to power through this. I'm like, it's going to be quick. And then as I was going, I'm like, there's just so much to discuss. Like, I saw people break this up into like 3 or 4 parts. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Don't do it, baby.
I'm just going to do one 6-hour episode.
Yeah,
of this.
It was it's just such a juicy case because they're shrouded in so much mystery. And I really think like the highlight of this case, if I had to tell somebody, would just be like both things can be true. And I think that's why this case was so hard to figure out, or it's hard for people to like reconcile what the truth really is. Because I do think that there was a lot of, I think that night started out probably just fine. And then it was like a snap kind of moment for him where he decided, I don't think it was premeditated in a way. I really don't. I think that he maybe had like some thoughts about it, but it reads to me like it was a moment in time where he was like, screw it.
I forgot where I read this, but I think it had to do with that the wrongful death suit that Kathleen's daughter filed against him, where they were able to get him on saying this was premeditated. And I was like, well, how premeditated? They were able to make an argument saying premeditation for murder can be minutes to seconds before somebody murders. And I'm like, doesn't that mean everything's premeditated?
Yeah.
Like,
literally.
I was like, I had the thought to murder you, and then I did. It's it was premeditated, I guess.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's pretty funny.
But maybe not premeditated in like the traditional way of like they drew up a master plan or a manifesto or something.
Yeah. Which is funny because I feel like he would be the type to do that.
Yeah, he's the writer. I guess. So yeah, that for me bodes well with the idea that something was found that was explosive, which to me was the porn and the emails. If you had to, I'm just going to tail us off here with one final thing I'll ask you to do. Between the 3 avenues that we could go, which is Michael murdered Kathleen, this was an accident, an accidental fall, or the owl theory. If you had to give a weight to each of them percentage-wise of how much of it you believe, how would you divvy up that 100%?
I think I would say 80, 19, 1.
I think I'm with you. I think I'm with you on that.
But in my head, I was like, do not mess up this math. I was like, what's 19 plus 1? Does that make 20? Literally in my head.
I know, that was cruel of me being like, Stu, if you could just do a quick fractional equation for me. Split up some percentage fractions. I would really appreciate that.
At 32, I should be able to split 100 into 3 parts. I should be able to do that. Yeah.
But I think I'm with you. I agree.
It would be shocking if someday it really was proven that she just fell down, because I just don't know how that much blood comes out of somebody that's fallen down a staircase.
I don't even know how 7 different lacerations happen from falling down a staircase.
Yeah.
It's like 15 steps. It's like it's not even that far. You have a picture of it, I think. You have a picture of the top of the staircase. So creepers, please do weigh in on the conversation on this one, because it's not quite as it is technically solved, we could say, on paper, but in the court of public opinion, it is still very much up in the air, which I thought was so strange, and it's still that way. It's been that way for years.
If there are creepers that really do believe that she just fell, like I want to know more about why you think that, because I'm very open, like I am open-minded to understanding that, because it's baffling to me.
Same. But thank you, Stu, for listening to this 2-hour and 10-minute episode, baby.
Oh,
and also for bearing through what you had to look at the whole time.
I was like, I'm going to toggle back. No, I'm not. Honestly, Gladys is much more comforting to me than the owl talon. So by the end, I was like, I'm back on you.
Oh, I should have came on as an actual owl. That's my next
Stop,
costume.
please. Oh my God, don't do that to me. No, not even that. No, stop. Oh my God.
Well, thank you everybody for listening, and thank you for being a creeper who wants to engage with the show. Please leave comments both on Spotify and on Reddit so you can share your theories about what really happened when it came to the staircase. But for now, we are going to catch you on the next episode where we will do a whole new costume for you to celebrate the month of Halloween.
Oh my
And now we
God.
get to say goodbye.
And good luck. Good
We'll
luck.
see you on the next one, babies. Catch you on After Dark.
Yes. Bye, creepers. Bye, creepers.